Hello. Today, I would like to make a video about the perception of Path of Exile when it comes to complexity. I believe many people falsely believe that Path of Exile is a very complex game that casual gamers just looking to kill monsters shouldn't play and would be better off playing something a little bit more brainless like Diablo 4. While it is true, Path of Exile would take several months, if not years, to know all the intricacies of creating a good build, the crafting system, and farming efficiently, at no point do you need this level of knowledge to beat the game. After you beat the game, whether that means just beating the campaign, which takes roughly 20 hours for a new player, or completing your full atlas by doing all non-Uber maps and bosses, which takes roughly 200 hours for a new player. After this, you can then determine whether you want to invest more time in learning all the systems to either create your own build, your own farming method, or craft your own gear, thus taking full advantage of everything Path of Exile has to offer. So having said all that, here are 4 need-to-know steps before diving into your first playthrough of Path of Exile. The first thing you will need is a loot filter, because if you play the game without it, there will be so much random shit on the ground that you'll be spending a ton of time reading items versus actually playing the game. While loot filters can be super complex if you make them, my suggestion would be to download 3 different loot filters that have different levels of strictness from the website filterblade.xyz. I would use the strict filter for when you play through the campaign and through white maps, as this is when your character is the poorest and thus want to pick up a lot of low value items. Use the strict filter for when you're doing yellow and red maps, for when you have a decent functioning build and are clearing maps fairly smoothly. Then switch to the very strict filter when you are pushing the last bosses through invitations and are about to complete your atlas. While this is a simplified solution to the complex loot problem PoE has, I personally use a similar strategy for my own gameplay, and I am a 10-year PoE veteran. The second thing you will need is a build to play. Now, while there are literally thousands of viable builds in Path of Exile, unlike some other ARPGs that say there are thousands, but in actuality there's like 10 or so, I would suggest new players pick specifically tanky caster builds. The reason you want to be tanky is because as a new player, you don't know what is dangerous in the game yet. So dying a bunch of times to stuff you don't know does a lot of damage will be frustrating. The reason I wouldn't suggest melee builds is because they have a harder time doing bossing content, because they are usually forced to have very little uptime on bosses because they have to dodge a bunch of mechanics. The reason I don't suggest bow builds is because they are usually dependent upon gear, which as a new player can be sometimes tricky to get. Casters get around these issues by scaling their damage through gem levels, which comes naturally when you get experience. Thus, all you need to know is how to link support gems to your active gems as a caster, and you're basically good to go. Now, obviously, if you always see yourself playing some kind of warrior playstyle in every game that you play, you can go play a melee build if you want. I'm just saying I think casters are the best for new players. So either go to YouTube or maxroll.gg and pick a detailed build guide that you can follow, and once you play the game one time through and complete your atlas, then you can make your own build on your second character and continue enjoying the game. The third thing you'll need is a farming strategy when you start getting Atlas passive points. Basically, you'll get a point for each map you complete. Sometimes the map will have to be magic or rare or corrupted to get the point, but once you get these points, you can allocate them to different game mechanics that will generate you more currency. Since, as a new player, you don't know what league mechanics you like doing over others in terms of fun, I have created an Atlas passive tree that doesn't really specialize in any specific mechanics, so you will get a decent amount of currency by just killing mobs in the map. But I am not blocking mechanics to spawn, so while you are getting decent currency, do the other mechanics that spawn, and if you like them and want to see more of the mechanic, after you beat the game, you can unspec the base Atlas tree I am showing and invest into mechanics you like. For example, the base Atlas passive tree I am showing gives you currency mainly through strong boxes that spawn in your maps, harbingers, which are basically blue mobs that spawn in your map, and searing exarch altars, which are clickable things that give you extra currency. But if you like the breach mechanic after beating the game, you can invest into the breach Atlas nodes and you will see more breach hands, and when you walk over them to kill the mobs, they will be more rewarding. The fourth thing that you'll need to know is how to buy gear. Since crafting an item yourself is usually a lot more expensive if you are a new player, since you don't know the best ways to go about things, I suggest just buying gear from the POE website using the raw currency you find using the Atlas passive tree that I just showed. While this may be a boring option for some players, I would argue it is more important to smoothly complete your Atlas, and your second character can be where you experiment with all Path of Exile has to offer. Now that you've beaten the game by completing the Atlas, now Chris Wilson, the God King of grinding your games, wants his money. And since you've had so much fun playing so far and plan on making your second character, you gladly want to give him some of your hard-earned cash. No, I do not work for Grinding Your Games, but I would suggest you go to the Path of Exile store and buy a currency tab, map tab, divination tab, fragment tab, and the 6 premium stash tab bundle. I don't know how much international prices are, but in terms of US, it costs $55 if it's not on sale, and having these stash tabs will allow you to store at least 10 times as much stuff as the base game allows, which is well worth it. So, now that you've beaten the game, and now can actually store your items in your new stash tabs, it is now time to create your handmade character with your own handmade crafted gear to farm your handmade Atlas tree currency strategy, which I will go over how to do in the next video. So if you like this video, like it and leave a comment if you want to see more, and maybe I'll do a short series of videos on how PoE isn't as complicated as people make it out to be. Thanks.